Okay, Sam, over to you when you're ready, please.
Cool, thank you, Susie. So this is Conscious Isolation in collaboration with the University of East London. We have the privilege today of having the Moon Gallery on board with us. So you're about to meet Elizabeth and Anna. Now, I first became aware of this project actually in Mexico. We then later met one another in an annual arts festival over in Portugal, which the Moon Gallery basically brought over a lot of the artifacts in which they'll be discussing within this lecture, which is very interesting. So Anna and Elizabeth are both Amsterdam-based curators, managers and deputy chair of the Moon Gallery. I'm going to now pass it over to you guys. So thank you ever so much once again, and we're very much keen to hear about what it is that you guys do and your operation. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you, Samuel, for the introduction and for having us. Yeah, we're speaking from the moon, and so there might be a 2.5-second delay, communication delay, but yeah, that's okay. Yeah, we're super excited to contribute to this conscious isolation theme. In fact, conscious isolation is at the core of our work at the Moon Gallery. We're looking at how can we more consciously isolate in the future on the moon. You see, typically space travel preparations are focused on science, technology, or productivity and survival. And with the Moon Gallery, we want to broaden this perspective by adding human touch, not just surviving, but living in isolation on the moon. So yeah, one of the greatest purposes of art is, of course, to reflect on the surroundings and surrounding world and see how can we cope with the challenges that the life is putting us through. And art can suggest ways to overcome those. And yeah, also the crisis that we are facing today. And in this time, we're all together kind of isolating here on Earth. And we want to invite you to think about our future as a spacefaring species in a far more extremely isolated environment, which is the moon. And what are the crucial qualities we need to obtain and can train for in order to inhabit such an environment with so many limitations? And what can these limitations inspire us for? So yeah, now we can agree, maybe the previous image is nice to show again. Now we all can agree that we all had a taste of life on the moon. We've lived in confinement, but having the most spectacular view of the most beautiful planet, so that you can see here and out of your window, of course. So confinement is only in our mind, and our creativity sets us limits. So let's practice escapism and ponder about our creative escapes together today.
So today we would like to introduce you to the project that we have been working on for almost 3 years now. I think it's a Moon Gallery, a first permanent museum on the moon. This is our ambition, our challenge, and our learning experience that we've been going through. Moon Gallery is a collaborative artwork and a gallery of ideas worth sending to the moon. We're developing this gallery together with our community through a series of open calls when we invite artists, scientists, engineers, and society at large to think about what would they want to send to the moon. So the biggest value of the Moon Gallery is, of course, discourse around it. So by asking questions about what are the ideas that we want to promote into the future, what are the ideas that we maybe want to leave behind, we give a real value to the gallery. Well, ultimately a gallery without visitors. This gallery has quite a unique format. It is, I don't know if you can see a little video that's actually done by one of our artists, but the unique format comes from space constraints, like certain constraints that space gives us, but at the same time, those constraints, they became an inspiration and gave this unique format to the gallery. The whole size of the gallery is just 10 by 10 centimeters. And each separate art piece can occupy only 1 cubic centimeter. These challenges, they came from the way how the gallery will be delivered to the moon. It's, of course, very expensive to send something to the moon due to the high technology and long distances involved. So we were thinking about how can we, on one hand, give or keep the diversity, because we wanted to send a lot of ideas by people, artists from all over the world, but at the same time without, that we can actually afford doing that. So that gave birth to this unique format. But at the same time, it became like this really nice challenge for everyone who participates in the gallery, because they have to think how to fit their big ideas into such a small scale. Just
maybe
to
I
give
can show quickly.
Yeah.
It's just a small 3D print. It's not the gallery itself because it's at the exhibition now, but to give you like an idea of scale, and this in those tiny cubes, each art piece is fitting. So it's very nice to see, I think, in the relationship, to a human. Yes, sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no problem. Feel free to interrupt me. Just to give a quick background to the how the Moon Gallery came together. So Moon Gallery is a part of the bigger initiative, which exists already for quite a long time. It's called Art Moon Mars. It's a platform for cooperation between scientists, engineers, artists, designers, and society at large. So basically the program has various activities, one of which, I guess our favorite, is a series of workshops where people from the really different backgrounds can come together and share their expertise and find often collaborators. One of the also things that we really enjoy doing is stargazing, because of course space is always inspiration for us and our community. And we really like also talking and thinking. Here you can see one of the think tanks which happened during our annual workshop in the European Space Agency. But coming back to the gallery, so this is the most recent picture of the gallery, something that we are proud of. This is the amount of artifacts, submissions to the gallery that we have so far. I don't know, Anna, what do you think? When I see it, I kind of feel it's been such a long way since we started.
Yes, it's growing a little bit slowly, but every new contribution shapes the gallery in a unique way. And as you can see, there are still a few empty slots for your ideas.
This time is a little bit special for us as well, because we thought we want to share our memories of how the gallery was developing, and maybe some behind the scenes parts of its development. So this is where it all started. People quite often ask us, how did we came up with this idea to send art to the moon? Well, we actually did not. We joined this project on the early stage of its development, and well, at some point we just sort of took it over because there was a demand for people who were ready to dedicate to give this project life, to bring it just from idea to become an actual initiative. And at the early days of the project development, we were mostly meeting in ISE Estek, which is in Noordwijk in the Netherlands. And I kind of remember those days with a bit of nostalgia, because I think back then we still didn't know what would be the shape of this initiative or of this project, how it will develop, or we didn't maybe even have a vision what it would be. But at the same time, a lot of discussions were way more uncurated and raw, but at the same time, maybe sometimes more inspiring. We had a possibility to engage a lot with the scientific communities. We had like this little tradition on Fridays, meeting in Estek to have sort of update and to work together on the gallery development. But at the same time, we would have a long-lasting dinner with a lot of people just joining by accident. Some of the scientists and engineers with who would just randomly talk and tell them our idea. And in a way, all of us were kind of working for food back then. But, you know, the food in Estek is so good that I wouldn't be ashamed of that. Here on the picture, you can see the very first exhibition of the Moon Gallery. It was still a conceptual exhibition, so only the posters were produced by then. Artists just submitted their first ideas, and we still didn't have an overview of how that will develop, but we wanted to get an immediate feedback. And actually, Estek was a great place for that, because I don't know, in my perception, of course, it's a little bit of generalizing, but in my perception, scientists are very nice audience to work with, because they dedicate their time to actually really dive deep into the concepts, to ask questions. They really wonder about things. And it was really kind of fruitful engagements and a good ground for the gallery to grow and to get its first feedback. Here you can also see I was quite excited when I saw this building first time. I would never expect the facility of the space agency to look like that.
It's a very iconic building by one of the most famous Dutch architects, actually. And it's all designed in a way to kind of optimize different science, engineering, various departments. It's very multi-layered, but with all with different colors, that it became like a big playground kind of. And they wanted to make this conversation between all the different ESA member states. All people are working at Estek are from different countries, and they speak different languages, and they want to kind of bring them together. But eventually, it really creates this crazy mix of all kind of different shapes and colors, and also all the spoken language and terrible acoustics. That is kind of was a kind of a Babylon tower. But it's quite an experience. Yeah.
And here you can see a very, very first prototype of the Moon Gallery. That's how we were thinking about it back then. But jumping to the sort of next phase of our development, you can already see quite a bit of growth there. So this is one of the first prototypes filled with first miniature submissions. This is an exhibition in the Space Museum nearby Estek, the Space Expo Museum. This was the first show when we exhibited the actual artworks. Back then, we were still thinking about the dialogue between the Earth and the Moon, and also between the miniature and bigger artifacts. That's why artifacts existed in two scales. there were miniature ones that would fit in 1 cubic centimeter. Well, here you can just see the conceptual visualization of those, but oh, I didn't include actually the picture. But yeah, back then, like most of the artists would still produce a bigger artifact, more suitable for the terrestrial shows, that it's easier for a human eye to kind of investigate all the details of the artifact. So here you can see yeah, our group picture. I mean, it was really fascinating to exhibit among all these space artifacts, and to have kind of our gallery immediately placed in the context of the space science. But for us, the next challenge was to place ourselves in a more artistic environment, because of course, with the scientists, engineers, it was exciting to discuss concepts, but we were feeling that maybe we're missing critical feedback from the artistic scene. So we decided that we can apply for the Milan Design Week. I have to say it was a bit random decision, and Anna and myself, we were finishing our application at a bar at 12 at night, not because we were out for a drink, but because we were missing internet and we really needed to send this application out before 12. So I think we were the only ones not drinking in the bar, but sitting there with our laptops. It's not the last time we were doing that, I have to say. And from the very beginning, this was a bit of a, I don't know, not a challenge, but also, honestly, we didn't know what we were doing. We were really excited when we got accepted there. But at the same time, next to excitement, we realized how many things we have to organize to actually be able to exhibit in Milan. Starting from funding, of course, we needed to have an actual installation. All the artworks had to be prepared and transferred there. And on the top of that, we had to come up with a little program for the duration of the show. Honestly, I still remember this as one of the best learning experiences in my life, but also one of the most rough experiences, like learning experiences of my life. Here you can see the installation. It was a really beautiful construction which Anna came up with. And
maybe I want to say a few words.
Do it.
So we were looking. So we were in the first place facing like €8,000 cost for participation, space arrangement, and yeah, there was no budget for the gallery yet. And we knew that we would have to go and bring all the artworks to Milan from the Netherlands by car. And then for our installation has to fit in a trunk of a very small, typical car. I am not so good with the brands, but yeah, something not like a van. You have to think about a small trunk. And the installation would have to fit in like this 10 quite big cubic artworks. And it should be kind of eye-catching, worthwhile to show in Milan and pay all the price of it, and also cheap to manufacture. So that were the things in mind for designing of the structures. You can see it looks quite complex on the drawing. It was a combination of many modules of metal frames put together with many screws. It has to be a structure that you can put together and break down. Yeah, took us about 24 hours to install, kind of non-stop, but it was an interesting experience. We decide not to design things like that anymore. Now we have a very different way to exhibit our art pieces, but yeah, still it served its purpose. It fit in the car, and yeah, quite a beautiful installation.
No, absolutely. I think from the beginning, the concept was even that it wouldn't need any screws, that it would kind of hold itself on its own. And I think it was really beautiful concept, but facing the reality of manufacturing, well, we had to put quite a lot of screws to it. Well, not only Anna had her challenges, since I'm a graphic designer of the gallery, I had to design a publication. Well, I haven't done it on time. So here what you can see is the whole of the base Milano during the Milan Design Week, where some of our participating artists who join us are putting together copies of the Moon Gallery catalog. And even worse than that, I decided that the covers of the catalog can be produced in Milan. And, well, maybe it's a technical detail, but the holes that were done in the catalog in Netherlands were circle, but in the whole Milan, it was not possible to find any circle machine that could make a circle holes. So eventually we ended up having the covers with square holes, and I think I learned throughout a few days almost common print shops in Milan. So this is a good way to also explore the city when you are doing the exhibition there. And I think, yeah, our last most exciting secret story of this show is that, well, for quite a while, we were doubting whether we are going or not. So we haven't really looked into the housing possibilities during the show. And by the time when we confirmed that we're going, that was not really possible to find something affordable. And back then, the Ventura Future Project, they had a concept of artists in residency. Well, I think we haven't fully realized that this is just kind of borrowing a name and I guess applying it to a completely different situation, like, you know, as if you would put a quote marks around it. So of course, every artist had a separate room in this building where they were presenting their artworks, but it was not really meant as a living space for the artists. Well, it was our living space together with 4 people for the whole duration of the show, as we haven't really came up with any other better solution. So when Anna was designing this floor plan, she really had to consider also for people being able to lay around this installation. Okay, I'm going to switch because there is some glitch going on the screen. We also had a little improvised program, which we actually just did in the corridor of the base Milano. But at the end of the day, I have to say it was a very pleasant experience. We talked with so many people and also had a chance to actually question some of the things we were saying, because when you repeat the things so many times, you stop, I don't know, really questioning what you are saying. But during this show, I think we got so many questions. There were so many people excited, people angry, people, I don't know, not caring, or people frustrated by what we are doing. So I think it was, we were really, really tired by the end of every day. We were sitting in the evening and honestly didn't want to talk with each other, because I think we were repeating this Moon Gallery presentation, what you heard at the beginning, I don't know, at least 40 times a day. But we eventually, I think, came up with quite a few good thoughts based on what we were asked. And of course, after the show, we had a really beautiful collection of big artifacts and documentation of those. So At the end, I think I personally was really proud and happy with how it went. And our next big milestone was Moon Gallery collaboration with the Igluna project. Igluna is a part of the ESA Labs initiative. And this year they were exploring together with the students from quite a few European universities the theme of habitation in ice. I think this is one of the most iconic shots of the Moon Gallery. It's placed on the lander, more or less how we envision it to be shipped to the moon. And it is standing on the top of the Kleine Matterhorn mountain in Zermatt. So it was, at this time, it was our highest point where we got so far, but also a really pleasant collaboration with a multidisciplinary team. In addition to the presentation on the top of the mountain, we also had a show in the city, in the downtown. But I think for both of us, actually kind of seeing the gallery being in the heart of the action was much more important than seeing it just in a beautiful gallery space. And one of the important things that happened during the show, we've got a chance to present our gallery to some of the astronauts. We have the gallery visited by Harrison Smith, the moonwalker of Apollo 17, Al Waldron, Yuri Baturin, Claude Nicollier, Gary Griffin, and Bob Williams.
And in this photo, you see Jerry Griffin, who is flight director of namely Apollo missions. So he got a hold of the Moon Gallery, but also many astronauts. It was a beautiful visit, and you have to imagine also on top of this glacier, there was this whole lunar habitat built by 20 teams of students from universities from all over Europe. So it was really like an experience of being on the moon, surrounded by the astronauts and flight commander and the whole team of people very enthusiastic about this future vision.
But I think it's also such an exciting idea to think about having a gallery elsewhere than a gallery itself, because of course when people are traveling to Zermatt, the Kleine Matterhorn mountain is actually one of their goals. So that's where everyone was drawn, rather than going to see the exhibition in the downtown. So it was, I don't know, exciting experience for us as curators and designers to think outside of the white cube. I think that was our last big show before the whole Corona story started. We've been invited to join the design block in Prague because they had the space as their theme that year. And we've been invited to become a part of a bigger installation, the Moon Habitat, designed by Lucy Koldova. I don't know, we really got excited about this possibility to see, or to kind of fantasize about how that would be if the gallery was actually on the moon or in a space environment. So, and that was also the moment when we started rethinking our presentation. Here you can see the more recent construction of the Moon Gallery, where it's kind of, I don't know, maybe Anna again, because she is a spatial designer in our team, elaborate a bit more about it. But yeah, I really like the fact that it looks a bit like it is floating in the air.
Yeah, indeed, we were going for more floating effect because the grid was quite impressive, but also quite distracting from the main artifacts. And now, okay, we're really focusing on the main actor of the show and not on the installation itself, which is, I think, the way, of course, to go.
I think one of the challenges for this show for us was that it was a little bit more difficult for us to communicate with the people, like partly because of the language barrier, also because there were way more kids there who also were not so interested diving into the concepts, etc. And I think during this particular show, there was one very important thing or project performed by one of our collaborators, Jamal Agheli. He installed a telescope just in front of the exhibition building, and he was in the evening stargazing together with the exhibition visitors and showing them Saturn. So out of that, he made a project called Seeing Saturn for the First Time. But for us, it was just really a different way to interact, or learning different way to interact. How can you engage with the audience who is not particularly into your topic, or who is not interested yet, or don't know yet enough to engage with what you are saying? And I don't know, I think it's also, as always, we learn something new about it. And nowadays we're really much more involved stargazing in our, well, when it's possible, of course, in our events, as it's a really nice conversation starter, let's say. So Moon Gallery celebrated the New Year 2020 in Hawaii, in the High Seas Analog Moon Base. And I think it was very symbolic, as it celebrated this New Year in isolation. And as all of us further proceeded to be in. But I think with this mission for us, it was also a challenge to think about, well, we neither of us could go there because, of course, that was a very particular training. People were going there with their research goals and questions, and the gallery went just along with them to see how that would be if it was on the moon.
You can see the gallery on the rover. It's a very tiny square next to the wheel. Just want to point that out.
Yes. But yeah, for us, it was also a moment to think about how that would be, because at some point we would have to also give the gallery kind of away. When it would be flying to the moon, we wouldn't have that much control over what would happen with it or how it would be on the moon. And I think it was a little bit emotional moment for us to trust it even to people who were our close collaborators. Yes. But yeah, after that, I think the beginning of the isolation was a little bit challenging for us, because as you can see, Moon Gallery is pretty much a nomadic gallery, and really big part of our activities is related to traveling around the world, presenting the gallery to different communities, opening the conversations. That's also the way how we got actually our 80 artists to become a part of the Moon Gallery collection. And when the isolation started, we were really wondering how we should adapt to it or how we should proceed. I have to say, even though we felt like we thought that we were exhibiting less, when I look back, we had quite a few shows. So we had a show in the beautiful Amstel Park in the Glasenhuis, and it was right after the first lockdown in Netherlands was released. So it was, there's like really the first possibility to do any cultural events. I think our thinking changed a lot in terms of that we were also thinking about how the exhibition can be observed from outside of the building, how people can be separated within the space. So here you can see that by planning this exhibition, for example, we use also posters as a little dividers of the space. And in general, we tried to build, to give more context to the exhibition, that people can kind of discover it on their own. So we built a little lunar terrain, had a lunar lander installed, and even had a little performance called Moon Landing.
Yes, it was a reenaction of the Apollo 11 landing, first step on the moon. As you can see, astronaut stepping into a pile of lunar dust.
I think also starting from this show, we started more often include performances in our conversations. And yeah, I think that's something that we really like doing and collaborating on. But honestly saying, like, to open an exhibition under the social distancing circumstances and with the Dutch weather, it was a real challenge. I think also for all our community, it was really difficult and in some occasions maybe awkward, because of course everyone was very happy to see each other, but at the same time everyone had to keep it cool. Just quickly to mention the Moon Water Gallery, the exhibition to which Sama referred as the occasion where we meet each other. So if we wouldn't be there, we wouldn't be here today. And I think with this exhibition, it was a little bit of a feeling of having a moon gallery exhibited on the moon, because it's been a lot of effort preparing this exhibition. But unfortunately, the outreach was not so good, because it was at the kind of rise of the corona cases in Portugal. So the event was really not promoted, but at the same time, I have to say it was such an inspiring trip. And I think we've been talking about Moon Gallery way more than actually showing the Moon Gallery, because just interacting and engaging with the artists who were doing a residency there, or talking with the people in the city, or people who joined our talk was really, I don't know, I was really happy that we could do that again and engage with the audience. And here you can see the performance. My brain is not working anymore. Anna, can you remind what is the name of the performance?
Walkaduct.
Yes.
It's the Moon Walk Parade that was performed by the artists based in Aveiro, and maybe also some of the artists in residency there. And partly also kind of inspired by our collaborator, Bernard Feng, who is astrophysicist, and he knows a lot about moonwalks, so he got some advice about how to do the choreography, I think. But very interesting spacesuits were designed for this occasion, as you can see.
And last big exhibition in 2020 was the Moon Gallery Close Cosmos. I want to quickly say about this exhibition, because I think for the moment we came to completely new phase of Moon Gallery. If before we were still exhibiting the dialogue between the bigger artifacts and the smaller artifacts. So starting from this exhibition, we kind of really focusing on the miniature artworks. I think it's partly not because we want to skip this dialogue, but I think that's because we slowly realize that we are moving closer towards the moment when we have to have the gallery prepared to travel to the moon. So we really feel like we need to pay much more attention to the quality of the actual pieces, but also conceptually, we want people to focus more on those miniature jewelry-like works. So here you can see the really short tour through the exhibition. It's been quite a long exhibition, unfortunately not during the whole time. it was possible. But yeah, we still hope that soon we can show it again, and people. So our original idea that people would be able to experience those works with a magnifying glass to really see all the details and all the effort which artists put it in the production of those pieces. And again, our Portuguese friends brought their performance to Netherlands, and we really enjoyed this day of moonwalking and collecting some samples in Leiden Botanical Garden. But yeah, another important thing that happened since the 2020, we actually got a little bit more time and space to think about our organization and establishing our organization. And Anna and myself, I think we realized that we actually need to really strengthen our team and have people with more expertise joining us on a permanent basis. That's why, with a lot of help from many collaborators, we established a Moon Gallery Foundation. Here you can see the board members. Bernard Foyn, he is actually, well, in a way, a father of the Moon Gallery, as it all started from him. He is chairperson of the Moon Gallery.
He's also the father of Smart One, the first European mission to the moon. So, yeah, he has a great network of to help us to go to the moon, which is quite nice. But now, yeah, we're all kind of connected in the space sector, and yeah, we'll tell you more about that soon.
Yeah. And Charlotte, our treasurer, she is really looking strict at our funding and also inspires us to be more structured. And I think, yeah, it's maybe a little advice to everyone who wants to establish their own art initiative: get a good team. You really need it, because we really benefited so much from that. And here is Mary Cowper. Well, she's been together with us from the very beginning of the Moon Gallery, actually, in all the adventures about which you
it's
just
her
heard.
car, which we drove together to Milan, and she was sending me a message while I was describing, my car is not small, but it is.
Well, if you want to fit a spaceship in that, maybe it's not so big. And then the Smauri and Fabian, they joined the initiative more recently, and both of them are inspiring and helping us in their own ways, and with their critical feedback, with their inspiring ideas, and providing all kind of different possibilities for the Moon Gallery to develop.
And of course, now the most interesting part of our talk, I don't know how much time we have, but of course, the most interesting, I think, is to share, well, about the art pieces that are a part of our collection. We've made a small selection, and you can find much more on our website and all our kind of communication channels. So this piece we received quite recently. It's called Earth and Moon Smell. Could lunar dust smell different? It was proposed by Giuseppe Fava Foundation from Padua. This submission is, as you can see, it's a sample of the Earth, but quite from a very special place, from a property confiscated from mafia, and yeah, in Italy. And this place is known today as Schida's Garden. So previously, this property, it was a place for murder and violence. But today, the Skida Garden is inhabited by very great initiatives. It's now a house for seminars, readings, classes, film clubs, and children's play. So it's very interesting illustration of how such a harsh environment can facilitate something very beautiful. And the Skida is, by the way, the name of the former president of the tribunal in Catania, where this mafia lord was prosecuted. So in a way, this garden, Skida's garden, it smells like gunpowder. That's also how it is believed that lunar dust smells like gunpowder. And that's where the title of the artwork comes from. And rehabilitating the soil of Skida garden can represent the goal of turning the lunar environment into a hospitable place one day. So this is this is a kind of the meaning behind bringing this artwork, the symbolic sample of Earth to the moon. Let's see how can we start our society on the moon using this beautiful example of what happens at Skida's garden.
Another artwork which we want to share with you today is the Last Bullet by Nick Verschoor. He is a founder of the special army group called Dutch 11 Airborne Art Rangers. And this last, actually in brackets, bullet is a small yet essential monument founded in commemoration of all the known and unknown victims of the violence from all over the world. So by sending this bullet, by placing the bullet on the face of the moon as a token of faith and hope, we inhabitants of our planet strongly emphasize the intention not to export our acts of violence to the other planet. But humankind, according to the Nick, cannot be really trusted. That's why he decided to place inside of this last bullet the artist's watchful eye, to keep an eye on us and on the decisions which we are making, which I think is a very relevant discourse within the space exploration at the moment, as there are getting way more players on this scene. And I think this is part of the what culture and arts have to do, is to watch out for the ethics and how we are becoming the space-faring creatures.
Lunar Bureau of Weights and Measures is an art piece proposed by art scientist Max Bereitzer Schmidt. This project is a meditation on lunar and terrestrial time. It kind of proposes a new organization of the moon, this Lunar Bureau of Weights and Measures. And Max, he is bringing this founding object for calibrating lunar time. He did quite an investigation to find out how would you be able to calibrate lunar time in relationship to how it is done currently on Earth. So this object, of course, will be housed in 1 cubic centimeter. And yeah, it can let us reflect on the difference between lunar and Earth time. So one of his reference is that on 20th of May 2019, the International Bureau of Weights and Measures redefined standard measurements in terms of constants that describe the natural world. The second, 1 second, was redefined as a certain number of cycles of caesium-133 atom used in atomic clocks. And on the moon, this atom resonates faster due to different gravitation time, as proposed by Einstein's theory of relativity. So the moon's gravitational field is weaker than the Earth, and lunar time should run faster. And this discrepancy between lunar and Earth time is the basis of the Lunar Bureau of Weights and Measures. Yeah, and this bureau will fulfill similar functions to those of the International Bureau on Earth, such as coordinating and communicating measurement standards. And it will also kind of fulfill or acknowledge the existence of multiple planetary measurement systems, not only using Earth as a standard, which is, of course, makes a lot of sense to do. So another interesting reference that Max is using to come up with this tool, it's to calibrate this time, is that there is an hourglass in Oda, Japan, in the Nima Sand Museum. That hourglass contains 629 billion grains of sand and takes exactly 1 Earth year to empty. And of course, we all know that lunar year is slightly bit shorter than the Earth year, and therefore to convert an Earth year into a lunar year, 419 grains of sand must be removed from this Nima hourglass in Japan, and therefore this Lunar Bureau's founding artifact will be a 1 cubic centimeter cube filled with those 419 grains of sand. Well, probably not those, but just 419 grains of sand, because it will be difficult to get the ones from the Japanese hourglasses. Yeah, they still should run to indicate the Earth time. But yes, so this 419 grains, you can see them visualized here in a cloud, in the cube. They will act as a kind of meditation objects and a way to acknowledge this difference between the time. And it's interesting to imagine for yourself how these dispersed grains will create new patterns, which are quite different from how our glass is running here on Earth. On Earth, they would quickly settle. Well, that's what happened in our gallery. They quickly settled in the bottom of the cube, making a little bit like a sort of very thin dune of sand. And you can hardly see it in the gallery, in fact. But when the cube is traveling to the moon on its way in the microgravity environment, the sand will be floating in this kind of cloud, and eventually slowly will be settling down on the moon again, and with a very different speed. So you can really experience with the sculpture, yeah, the difference in the passage of time on the example of this cubic hourglass.
So the next work is it's called A Cat Purring Comfort .mp3, and it's done by Thea Boyarchuk. She is a conceptual photographer, and this is actually a really recent piece. We got it with our latest open call, which was dedicated to the isolation. So we're asking artists to reflect on the isolation in relation to habitation on the moon. So Thea was thinking about the human, long-lasting human relationship with animals, and in particular with our pets. And she was reflecting on the, of course, that those relationships, they have a long history, starting from domesticating of dogs for hunting, and then by ending with us sharing the cute images of our pets in the digital environment. So she, when she started thinking about inhabiting the space, she was really wondering, well, how would that part of our human nature would develop outside of the Earth planet? Would we take pets with us? Would they like this trip, or would we get there some maybe other non-human creatures as our companions? So this artwork is a reflection on our non-human companionship and relationship with animals. So this is still a conceptual prototype, as she just submitted it, and we still are curious to see how the final piece will look like. But what we are looking at is shape of the wave of the cat's purr. So the content and the happy vibrations suspended within the cube. It is supposed to bring the comfort to us by listening to it.
I'm just wondering, because we're running out of time, should we continue with the art pieces or move on to the space missions? Maybe we can quickly mention, but not too much in detail.
Okay.
So this is Elemento, and a sculpture by Hadi Milani, who is a suborbital astronaut candidate. He wants to bring a backup of Earth to the moon surface. The main structure of this sphere, which resembles kind of the Earth shape, is made out of a space-grade material, a rhodium platinum alloy, and this sphere has 120 equal facets, which will be holding the samples of all the elements which can be found naturally on Earth, thus creating this backup of the Earth to bring to the moon.
Okay. And the last artwork which we would like to share with you is Adsum by Eduardo Katz. Eduardo is actually a celebrity in our gallery. It was really our honor that he submitted an artwork to the Moon Gallery. It is a little bit challenging to explain it in a few words, but Adsum is a spatial poem. Eduardo designed a number of symbols that always come together either in the word nos or in the word soon. So you can see that they're placed within the acrylic cube as a kind of three-dimensional composition and can be observed from the different perspectives. I wanted to mention that I think Eduardo is the only artist who properly made a proposal to our gallery. I don't know if Anna still has a box, but when he came to visit us during the workshop in Aztec, he opened this box to us and showed us this amazing, beautiful piece. I mentioned that Eduardo is a celebrity, actually because he already has one of his artworks in space. One of his artworks is exhibited or was exhibited on the ISS. And I don't know, when I see a picture like that, it makes me feel really hopeful and excited and inspired. Also, yeah, faithful about the future of the Moon Gallery?
Yes, the most one of the most exciting topics that we're working at the moment is the actual space mission. How do we make it happen? How do we get to the moon? We're currently in the preparation and fundraising phase, and not for just our moon mission that we've talked about already today, but also more generally looking at different options of space art, space-based art installations and collaborations to achieve this. So we are reaching out to various space companies to start conversation, dialogue, and develop relationships and see what are the possibilities. And we have set ourselves this kind of whole roadmap of various spaceflight milestones that are all set in time. Well, at my interior architecture job, I make spreadsheets comparing different brands of furniture and costs and things like that. Here we do the same thing. We have spreadsheets with different launch providers for different types of space missions, different price ranges, their launch windows, and so on. But this is quite a bit level more complicated than those kind of interior elements that I usually work with, because the thing is with space business is really very much in a kind of its own bubble, and each mission is very unique. So getting in touch with the right people can be always a challenge. And we're constantly busy growing our potential launch providers contact list, because it's always via, and there is no direct way to do it. It's something that we have to explore, and but it's also very exciting. So what are the steps to the moon? What milestones are we talking about? The order I want to suggest now is kind of not exactly how we think it will happen, but just to make it more simple and clear, and more straightforward, to say like, the steps as based on their distance from Earth factor. So in fact, we envision it will be a bit of a back and forth movement, but let's go just from starting from Earth and closer towards the moon, to give you a little bit of insights into our roadmap. So the first step is, of course, starting from the Earth. That's the first step that we are already kind of taking, and it's Earth, but not just Earth, but Earth Moon kind of moon precursors, such as lunar simulation environments that Elisabetta already described. For example, how we went to this lunar simulation in Hawaii. And this is, our first step. And of course, would be also very, this is to see how can astronauts already interact with the Moon Gallery as an experiment on a lunar base. What can we develop, what kind of interactions, and see. Sometimes astronauts are isolated for just a week, or for 2 weeks, or for a month, or even longer, and then they really start to appreciate this artistic contribution towards their mission. And what we're also thinking in terms of Earth, it would be very interesting to travel to South Pole, to Antarctic Station, where the team spends the whole summer or winter, so half year, in isolation. And we're also thinking it would be interesting to do a laser ranging experiment, so to have a code, for example, of the Moon Gallery 3D print, send it with a laser to the reflector on the moon, and get it arriving back on Earth, and see, okay, we can 3D print and see how the trip to the moon affects the moon gallery and art pieces. That would be also a very interesting thing to do. So the second step that we have in mind is high altitude. That's also something what we've already described and what we're doing. Starting with the highest mountains, we did Mauna Loa in Hawaii for 1,000 meters, a bit more than that. And Klein Matterhorn is a bit less than 4,000, 3,883. And here you can see a photo that is our milestone scheduled this May to send the gallery into the stratosphere with a high altitude weather balloon. So this is a view that we will receive, but with the moon gallery being, with the Earth in the background, which we're very much looking forward. Yes, and there are multiple other ways to go high altitude, such as rocket competitions. We can launch ourselves with some student rockets. Then it's an interesting step to do a zero-G flight experience and see how those sun grains will behave in zero-G. All these high altitude steps are kind of planned for this year. We also could join a rocket test flight. We could be weight simulation for a rocket, like Tesla car was, also doing that function. So this is like a first step, high altitude. Outer space starts from 100 kilometers. So that is our third step on our way to the moon. That could be with the rocket upper stage or on a CubeSat. As you can see on the picture, there it's a little bit difficult to attach to such a CubeSat, which has solar paneling on all the sides, but some CubeSat have, this 10 by 10 by 10 is quite a good format for a CubeSat. They can be bigger. That's more of a micro CubeSat, but yes, so those great vehicle to bring the moon gallery into space. And the next step is International Space Station, which we just visited, where Eduardo Katz had his art piece. And there are multiple ways, like how Eduardo Katz did. It was carried by astronauts. In fact, it was not just carried by the on-site, produced by astronauts. So it can be carried by an astronaut to ISS, or it can be in situ produced, for example, by a 3D printer that's now operating on ISS. Or as a separate experiment in itself, it can be brought there. That's actually what we're targeting for the moment, and that is something that we plan to do in 2022. Then we can get even closer to the moon and do a moon flyby or be in orbit of the moon. For example, Starship is intending to do such a mission with SpaceX. But we don't have any arrangements for that yet. For our ultimate step, the moon, that is most likely to happen 2022, 2023. We have quite some discussion and possibilities. And what we're targeting is a robotic landing, similar to what you've seen on the photo from Zermatt. But the lander will be much, much bigger. And the moon gallery will be installed on the interior of the lander, and there will be onboard cameras, and rovers can also have it in their view of field, so we can have good views of the gallery with the Earth in the background again. And hopefully one day the moon gallery on the moon will also get some human visitors, which is an exciting new step, and even become a part of the future moon village. Maybe then it will not be so compact anymore, and we can have we can grow from these little seeds of culture, site-specific installations on the moon and within the lunar base. So as you can see, it's the journey ahead is very exciting, and do join us. The sooner you do that, more space travel and fun together. Thank you for your attention, and please contact us if you have any questions, and feel free to submit your idea.
Thank you so much for that. That was an absolutely brilliant brilliant talk, and so much interesting information, nostalgia there. Great journey, great process, fantastic. We do have some questions for you, and I'd quite like to start out, if that's good. So I'm interested in the materials in which one can take into space, because obviously there's materials which some people would like to take into space, which may not be, sort of a very good logistical concept with regards to, it might be dangerous to the craft. And I was wondering, you've had discussions about that, I assume, and would you be able to tell us a little bit more about what sorts of materials wouldn't be just in going to space, wouldn't be dangerous to the operation itself?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I feel like it's not such an easy question to answer, because we were also trying to wrap our head around it for quite a while. And there is no simple, like the simple answer would be, okay, no explosives, no fragile materials, no toxic materials, like things that are more or less obvious. We're actually at the moment trying to develop a special technical committee for the Moon Gallery who can advise on that. And this is because, of course, the date of the launch is getting closer and closer. And we realize that also artists do need support with making their artwork space-proof. So we are looking for professionals who can really advice, because from what I think from the answers what we heard when we were asking this question, so there are like a really long manuals and lists of materials, complicated materials, a lot of which it's not so easy to get your hands on. And like just by kind of forwarding this database to artists, we believe that it would not really help, as, for example, I personally barely can understand some things from there. So it is in our very close plans to get a better idea about it.
Okay, cool. And I was also wondering, I mean, because to work with artists and people in the aeronautics industries and the space industries, I mean, there must be kind of like quite a divide, maybe not, maybe there's like a renaissance melting pot with regards to the two colliding and collaborating together. But I mean, how have you found working with, sort of both difference in creativity, I suppose, this whole spectrum, this whole horizon of aviation, space, professionals and artistic endeavors, which are also professionals?
Well, we have kind of two distinct groups in the gallery. Some are professional artists, and some are very passionate, creative makers who are scientists or engineers or quite many other professions involved. And but they're very passionate about creating things, and they have great ideas. So of course the discourse is different. In the artistic world, we have some kind of special language, like in the Netherlands, how you creators are communicating. But our gallery is more about the ideas and the values, and those are quite universal, and they speak to everybody, I think, on a certain level. So we don't encounter difficulty with that somehow, or it's I think it's quite each contribution is I don't know, has a value of the idea behind, and it's not so much about execution or artistry or something like that. Maybe Elizabeth, you can add to it.
I do find that it's part of, like a part of our work, what we do, because bringing to the certain artistic quality level all the submissions, because of course it's a little bit of a challenge working with both like professional artists, people who are professionally doing arts, and the people who just want to submit their idea, but they are coming from completely different background. And I think building a dialogue between two kind of enriches both worlds in a way, because artists, indeed, what Anna said, sometimes when they're just surrounded by the same people with the same background, they maybe, yeah, like kind of lose a certain authenticity in a way. And I think that can be really gained from the people who are coming from completely different background, and yeah, vice versa.
Okay, that's very interesting. I have a couple of more questions here, but I think that Susie also has some, and we have some from the floor as well. Your audience, I mean by that. So I'm going to pass over to Susie now with regards to her questions and the floor's questions. Okay.
Brilliant, thanks. So yeah, one of the questions we've had in the chat was about what have the biggest challenges been so far for you?
I think getting to the moon is the biggest challenge that we have, because it's the most identified problem. Kind of some other things, they come naturally in the process, but this is the goal that we set, and it's also a limit in a way, and it is a kind of cornerstones of our activities.
I would say getting to the moon and time management. No, yeah, I think, of course, getting to the moon is something that we keep on working for a very long time. And I think also maybe in a way staying motivated, because I think sometimes it can be really emotionally rewarding working on the gallery, and sometimes it can be really a lot of routine, because having a community of 80 artists, and this is only artists who are part of the gallery, but of course we have always submissions, we have people who are just interested or want to know something, or some collaborators organizing events, etc. So I think for us, I don't know, maybe for myself, it's personally a challenge, kind of balancing and always having enough excitement to keep on going on the routine things.
For me, also fundraising, because
yes,
it's
big
not our professional interest so much, because we're more of a creative content makers, or we like managing the projects, but the fundraising part is out of our comfort zone. We're always looking for partners or collaborators who are interested by doing the fundraising, and yeah, we're trying to get more excited about it and enjoy it more and make it fun for ourselves, but it always comes with doesn't come naturally.
Brilliant, thanks. And do you have any advice for any upcoming curators, please?
Well, we're also quite upcoming curators, self-proclaimed upcoming curators. So yeah, just go for it, explore, and try to find the fascination. What's your fascination, the topic that interests you and drives you further, I would say.
I think also, I don't know, maybe that's due to my background as kind of graphic designer, visual storyteller. I think that's really a lot connected with this desire of telling stories, or kind of curating content in a certain way that it builds the bridge between a beautiful idea and the visitor. So I think that's something that really is exciting for me in the curation. This kind of building relationship and dialogues.
Well, thanks. I also had a question myself, which is I've spent quite a lot of time in Zermatt growing up as well, and I just wondered what the responses were to that piece, because I think it's really interesting that in that location it's on the border of two countries, with Switzerland and Italy, and it's also the kind of highest point that you can go, as far as I know, with public transport up there, you know, with the ski lift. So I just wondered what the responses were to that piece in the local area.
Well, yeah, as I mentioned, for us it was actually very surprising that it was way more difficult to bring people to a gallery in the downtown than to have them watching the gallery on the top of the mountain. Maybe we shouldn't have been surprised by that, but it was a little bit of a challenge. I think, well, when it was exhibited on the Kleine Matterhorn, it wasn't positioned as a art piece. That's why it was also, I think, the way how people were interacting with it was very natural, kind of. They would like come really close to the little gallery. They would look at the pieces, I don't know, knock on the glass and things. And in a way, it was very exciting how there was way more true curiosity about it, because I think in general, yeah, when you go to such environment, you're open to exploring, and this is a very unusual thing to see, not something that people were expecting to see there. I think due to our schedule, we didn't really have a chance, like, to what we have done before, for example, in Milan, to stand there and talk a lot with the people. So we were more like side observers in this case. But I think we both were really kind of pleased by the way how that worked in completely different surrounding.
Well, thanks. And have you found that the responses have been different in different countries to your project? Obviously, when you're traveling around talking about it in different places, has it been very, very different in certain locations as well?
I think for me, the most exciting location that we visited was a virtual visit. We had a talk a year ago in Padova, Italy, where it was just an hour talk to a group of jewelry artists and people from Padova University of Science. Were like about 40 guests, and it was a great experience. We had more questions than we actually delivered the talk, and afterwards we received almost for everybody a submission, and we keep receiving them, and they always want to get updates on the progress. And somehow it's so strange because we were not even there, only virtually, and somehow it was extremely successful. We exchange emails, and yeah, conversation is very alive.
I agree, but I think it's also part of like when we go somewhere, most of the times we know who is our host, more or less, or like we in advance try to prepare because we like doing this site-specific installations or collaborations, or thinking about the program, because it's always not just about installing things and leaving them there, but it's about ways how to open a dialogue or how to do something together in spot. So we don't really encounter the troubles of like being in place, or maybe, yeah, like for example, like in a design week in Prague, as I mentioned, it was a little bit more challenging to communicate with people, like simply just because less people were speaking English, for example, or the age group of the visitors was a bit under what we are used to. But then, yeah, then we were trying to find different ways to build these dialogues.
Great, thanks. I think Sam's got a few more questions as well.
Hi again, guys. I think it's really interesting and important that obviously you're also talking about Elon Musk and with SpaceX, and I mean it'd be amazing, obviously, if you were able to make that collaboration happen with him, and maybe even get the project even further to places like Mars. I suppose I was kind of wondering, because it's the industry in China hasn't been spoken about, and I was wondering, would that be a place that you'd like to further collaborate with regards to their space program? Has that been spoken about at all? Is it potentially on the cards?
Yeah, we were thinking about it. Of course, Chinese space program is very active. The thing is that we don't have yet any Chinese artists, and we would love to have, but we're kind of quite underrepresented there. We want to do something there, but it hasn't happened yet. It's definitely on our plan. But for the moment, while there is no representation of Chinese artists, it also feels quite complicated to approach. They have a very, not like when you contact American companies, they're more private. But in China, it's very government based. So most likely they would expect us to fill quite many cubes with Chinese art pieces, which is also not the idea, as we want to be open for everybody. And we're mainly focusing, in fact, on commercial companies for our space flight, because those are much more open to, okay, if it's not funded by their public money, then they don't request you to just, okay, if it's ESA funded, then all the artists maybe need to be European. So it's a kind of thing with all the government agencies, that it kind of is not really in compliance with our goals in a way. But definitely we are not gonna say no.
If tomorrow we get an email with an opportunity to fly with a Chinese mission, we say yes.
I mean, that's interesting. You're talking about there's more hurdles and hoops to jump through because you have to go through governmental departments, and it can't maybe grow more organically. I'm actually doing a project out there. It's just a fabrication project, but I could bring your project maybe out there, in Word, and see if there's any. I'm sure, because it's such a great project. The last thing I was going to ask you guys, and I don't know if you have the answer, but do you know how much fuel it takes just to raise one of those up into the out of the Earth's gravity?
That's a question to the wrong people. We're not that part of the team. We have somebody else working on that.
Oh, sorry, I was just curious because it's just like very, very.
No, it's a good question. We should wonder about it more.
Thank you. No, and also I just want to say, like, for everybody that's watching and that will watch it pre-recorded, these guys also gave a fantastic talk on TEDx, which you can find on YouTube. And I just really want to say thank you so much for giving us your time. It's such a brilliantly charismatic and innovative project, and you guys are doing a fantastic job. And just to hear about everything in this, I suppose, quite short sort of moment with regards to the lecture, you've covered a lot of bases, and it's a really, really wonderful thing that you guys are doing, and truly mind expanding. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. It was really great to share. We never shared such a personal story before, in fact.
Yes, that was a little bit of a self-reflection, but also just wanted maybe to talk a bit more from the head, not from the paper. So we hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, my